Okay, we are going to start our session. It's already 6:05, so let me start. So I would like to welcome all the new participants. Some of the participants I know, and some of the participants I don't know because they have been invited by Dr. Bikas Das. And I'm really happy, Dr. Bikas Das, sir, because you have accepted our invitation on behalf of Orissa Follow-up Organization. I would like to welcome you, sir, for this today's webinar. Simultaneously, I would request Yeseko Dandia. Uh, so she will brief about our today's guest speaker.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Orissa Follow, I, Yeshiko, am here to talk about our today's guest speaker, Dr. Bikas Das. Dr. Bikas Das is the president of CLAP, Legal Service Institute. It is one of the oldest public interest law firms of India. Dr. Bikas Das has done LLM and PhD from India's premier university, New Delhi. He started his career as a lawyer of Orissa High Court in 1993. Subsequently, he decided to work with CLAP to promote law and justice in India. He was appointed as advisor to Supreme Court Commissioner on Food Security in 2003. He was also visiting faculty in various government training institutes. Apart from this, he has several publications to his credit. Broadly, he is a pioneer in the field of legal services and filed PIL in High Court and Supreme Court of India. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Jessica Dandia, for briefing about our today's guest speaker. So let me take this opportunity to hand over this session to Dr. Bikas Das. So I invite you, sir, to carry forward this session.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Amod Kanji, for organizing this wonderful program. This is a very interesting topic which you are holding today. Right to counsel is very important for every citizen, every individual. For every person, it is important. But we hardly discuss this subject because there is no occasion for its discussion.
Yes.
Most of the time we think that engaging a lawyer is our responsibility, so there is no need to discuss. So since you have organized this program, I think this is going to be very good for the society, that people will come to know how it is a right and how it is going to help people in realizing their other human rights.
Yes, sir.
So from the beginning, let me tell you, Pramodji, if you have any idea that what exactly you want to hear from me, you can say that. Otherwise, let me present the topic. Uh, this is, let me start like this. When we say right to the access to counsel,
Yeah.
broadly, it means right to have a lawyer. Counsel is used in the sense of a lawyer. Sometimes we say it's a lawyer, sometimes we say it's a pleader, sometimes we say it is an attorney, sometimes we say counsel. Counsel is used here because a counsel is always there to protect and defend you in the court of law when there is a legal issue. That is why we have chosen the topic today in consultation with Amodji, that the topic will be access to counsel. Right, the sub theme is right to legal representation and legal defense.
Defense. Yes.
So when we discuss about right to counsel, it is definitely mean to have a lawyer to conduct your case. But there is no denying the fact that you cannot engage a lawyer. You can engage a lawyer to conduct your case, but in its the simple term of it is to have access to justice, which is more important. When we say to have a counsel, it is about to gain access to justice. What is access to justice? Access to justice is that in every democratic state, in every modern state, in order to resolve the grievances of the people for conducting cases of criminal related cases, civil disputes, there is a set of institutions called judiciary. As you know, in a democracy, there are three major institutions of the state: the legislature, the executive, and the judiciary. And the judiciary is there for judicial review, to hear your cases, to impose penalty in case of criminal law, to decide the right title of people under civil law, and all that. Now, access to justice is this, to reach this judicial institution to resolve your grievances. So that is what, when we say access to justice, but it has a broader meaning also. Access to justice does not only mean that access to judicial institutions. It is also access to administrative institutions, because in a democracy, you have judicial institution as a separate agency of the state, but prior to that, your grievances can be redressed through administrative agencies created for the purpose of adjudication of your entitlements. So the administrative justice system is also there. We have a set of administrative law which talks about the responsibility of government officials, the duty cast upon them, their area of operation, the omission of duties by them, and what implications are there in case of omission, the commission of their actions, and also sometimes it is treated as arbitrary action if it goes against the interest of the public. So when we say access to justice, it is access to both judicial institutions and also access to administrative agencies. So access to justice is gaining access, reaching out to judicial institution and administrative institution to redress your grievances, to secure your entitlement, to claim your demand, and all that. So that is why access to justice is important. If access to justice is important, what is the major element in access to justice is, when you want to gain access to justice institutions, go to reach out to justice institutions, you need a lawyer. Therefore, you have a right to have a counsel. You have a right to have a attorney. You have a right to have a advocate. That is the concept which we are discussing today under the broader topic, access to counsel. So the counsel must be there, because every citizen, every person, every individual has a right. It is a fundamental human right that everyone will be protected and given space in the judicial and administrative proceeding to ensure that rights are protected, to make sure the entitlements are secured. So this is all about the topic, access to counsel. It emanates from access to justice, and in order to reach out to the institution, you need a lawyer, and so you should have, at the first instance, you should have access to a counsel. So this is the first topic. Second is, and the purpose of engaging a lawyer is, let me tell you this aspect also. The purpose of engaging a lawyer in your case is to for your legal representation in the proceeding or your legal defense. When it is required, that will be elaborated in due course, in course of presentation, that will be discussed. Now the question is, when do we need access to a counsel, or when do we need to have our right to a counsel? Uh, every time we don't need a lawyer, like every time we don't need a doctor for our health issue, every time we don't need a lawyer. But there are occasions when there is a certain demand, demands are there to engage a lawyer to conduct your case. What are the instances? Let me tell you briefly about it. When do you need a counsel? Suppose all of a sudden you are in conflict with criminal law, either as an accused or as a victim of criminal law. You are a victim when some crime is committed on you. For example, somebody has beaten you, somebody has taken your property, somebody has trespassed into your property, in your area, somebody in sometimes very heinous crimes like murder, rape, outraging modesty of women, that also takes place. Sometimes there are hurt, grievous hurt. These are criminal offenses. What is a criminal offense? The Indian Penal Code says whatever is punishable under law, that is an offense. So you can be a victim to any of the offenses. When you are a victim, you need a lawyer to understand what to do. Although we have that much of knowledge that when your rights are violated or you become a victim of any crime, then initially you will go to police station to approach them for your support. So that is as a victim of crime, you have police station who in turn register your case and protect you, and the case goes to court, and in the court it will be treated as a prosecution case, and as it is a prosecution case, the prosecution lawyers will be there to protect your right.
Okay.
Understood?
Yes.
I hope you understand this point.
Yes.
Uh, uh, my point is, when do you need access to counsel? First, when there is a criminal case. In criminal case, it is again divided. First, you are either a victim or an accused. If you are a victim, you are going to police station, lodge a complaint, and the case is taken over by prosecution, and the prosecution engages a lawyer, which is called a government lawyer, to conduct your case. Suppose you are an accused, then you will be treated that you are a person who has come in conflict with law. You are in conflict with law, so you are going to be punished. So you immediately need a lawyer. This is a established principle that when somebody is caught in the criminal legal justice system, they will be given a chance to contact their lawyer for their defense. It is established. I will discuss that later on. It is a right that if the moment police ask you to come to police station, you have a right to consult a lawyer, because you need defense. Because some cases are cognizable, some cases are non-cognizable, some cases are bailable, some cases are non-bailable. So in those cases, police may arrest you. If you are arrested, then you have a right to bail. So you need a counsel. That is why in criminal law, then the case goes on, and in course of hearing of the case, your legal defense is necessary in the criminal justice system. Otherwise, you will be punished. Even sometimes, if it is a murder case, there is a possibility that you may be hanged today, tomorrow. So your defense is crucial in all through the proceeding of criminal law. So first, when we needed legal counsel in a criminal law, either as a victim or either otherwise, or as an accused, or as a convict person, or as a under trial prisoner, you need lawyers. Secondly, in civil law also you need legal protection. What are the civil laws? Whatever is not criminal law, that is civil law. Everything comes under that, including your family dispute, that is civil matter, that is handled through civil procedure code. The consumer matters, they are also civil in nature. Wherever there is a right, wherever there is a title, wherever there is an interest, it is a civil matter. So the matters will be heard in civil court. So when do you need? Suppose it is a family issue, there is a matrimonial issue. You are married and there is a dispute with your spouse. So you need to go to family court to approach the court to resolve your grievances. The grievances may be of many types. If you are a woman, you may claim a maintenance. If you are a woman and the father has taken over the child, then you can go and ask for the custody of the child. Suppose you are a either spouse, you can demand for judicial separation, you can demand for divorce, you can demand for restitution of conjugal life. These are there in the family laws. So these are civil laws, you need a lawyer. Similarly, if there is a consumer case, sometimes it is a case where dishonor of check, you need a action under Negotiable Instrument Act to realize the money. There may be property issue, somebody is trespassing into it. There may be many other issues connected with civil laws. So wherever there is a issue of right, interest, or mm, your protection is required under civil law, then it is a civil dispute. So in that case also you need a lawyer to defend yourself, because broadly what is precisely understood is that a person is not very much conversant with the legal provision, the procedures, and also trial. And it is very difficult for people to actually argue their own case. When it is a case of other, you can argue. But when it comes to your case, you may not argue, so you can defend yourself. So first we need a lawyer in case if there is a criminal case. Second, we need a lawyer if there is a civil case. Third, you may need a lawyer if it is a case of your fundamental rights guaranteed under the constitution, right? Like you have a right to equality, you have a right to non-discrimination, you have right to freedom, you have right to liberty, you have right to life, and all these rights are there. If there are you know violation of these rights, you have a you again have a right to approach your high court or supreme court for protection of your right. In that case also you need a lawyer. So why we need a lawyer? We can understand that if there is a criminal case, we need a lawyer. If there is a civil case, we need a lawyer. If there is a violation of fundamental right cases, then we need a lawyer. And nowadays, in modern legal regime, we see that many people are also going to High Court and Supreme Court when public interest matters are also emerging.
Yes.
Suppose there is an environmental pollution issue, there is a issue of starvation, there is a issue of misuse, trafficking. Then many people are also going to High Court and Supreme Court for appropriate orders on that. And for that reason, also you need a lawyer. So what we what I want to communicate is that firstly you have a right to engage a lawyer in all your case, and there are various instances when you need a lawyer to engage. So now we'll come to another point. Uh, since you are required to engage a lawyer in for conducting your case, is there any exception to it? Is there any cases where you don't need to engage a lawyer? There are some instances, but everywhere it is allowed. For example, in family matters, under Family Court Act, it is said that lawyers can be engaged if court permits. Lawyers will be engaged as amicus curiae. Friends of the court, they can be engaged to conduct your case. Otherwise, a party can conduct their family related cases because they are the best person to say what is happening within the family. So in that case, lawyers are may not be required. Similarly, in consumer cases also, consumers are not allowed. Initially, there is a provision that consumer will not be allowed to engage a lawyer, but gradually it is required that you need to have a lawyer because there are some technicalities in the procedure, procedural complexities in the hearing of the case. So you may not be aware about all this, so you need to engage a lawyer. So there are exceptions, but in all cases you need to engage a lawyer. Now coming to the next point, what is more important. Now I'll come to the theoretical aspect. This is what I discussed, that is about the practical aspect of the topic, access to counsel or access to justice. These are practical things, why we need a lawyer and all that. You all understand why we need a lawyer now. Now let us come to the foundation, theoretical foundation of this issue. Why it becomes a right, why people are given a protection. It has a long history, it is a long pedigree. The uh, idea emerged in England when people are caught in criminal justice system. Many people are given death punishment, people died without properly represented in the court of law. So gradually it was discussed that everyone will be protected in criminal justice system, and state will provide defense for those who have no capacity to pay to the lawyers to defend themselves. So this idea emerged, and what we see uh, in the modern context, in 1948, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights was enacted, I mean adopted by the United Nations, then there was a provision made that everyone has a right to uh, free and fair public hearing. This is there under Universal Declaration of Human Rights in Article 10, I suppose. It says that everyone has a right to go to a free and fair public hearing of their case. So it is recognized that it is a fundamental human right. Everyone will be protected through public hearing of their cases. Gradually, this idea was discussed at length, and in many issues, it was found that there is a need for giving chance to be defended by a lawyer. So, when in 1964 the International Covenant on Civil and Political Right was adopted by the United Nations, in Article 14, it was elaborately discussed that why there is a need for legal representation, and said that everyone is entitled to be defended by a lawyer to conduct their case. No one can be denied representation in the judicial and administrative forum. So it received the sanction of the international human rights standard, that everyone has a right to be defended by a lawyer, everyone has to be represented by a lawyer, defense must be given to protect the interest of the people. So this is the, from the international perspective, this is the theoretical foundation emerging from the British principles. It is consolidated into international human rights instrument and all that. Now, what is there, if it is there in the international law, what is there in our Indian legal system? In India legal system also, the constitution guarantees that everyone will be given a chance to be represented. Because the fundamental right chapter says that right to equality is guaranteed, right to life is guaranteed, right to personal liberty is guaranteed. But how it is guaranteed if you are not represented in the court of law, if your voices are not heard? So it is there in the constitution, but subsequently it was realized that enough adequate legal provisions were not made in Indian context to defend the interest of the people, to represent the people in the court of law. So gradually, by 42nd constitutional amendment, the provision of social justice and free legal aid had been incorporated in 1975. So it becomes a constitutional mandate in India that legal aid will be provided to people who are unable to represent themselves. So it is important aspect in a constitutional perspective. So when we discuss about this theoretical foundation, what is more important is, apart from this international law and the national laws, the constitution and all that, what is more important is what we must bear in mind, that our jurisprudential knowledge also recognizes it. Our jurisprudential knowledge says that everyone must be represented properly in the, when it is about a case involving their interest, which is called the right to have a say or right to be heard. Right to be heard is a jurisprudential notion which recognizes that in every matter where your interest is being determined or your interest is being heard, you will be given a chance to represent yourself or defend yourself. So the jurisprudential sanction is also there. So what we discussed until now is that, first, what is access to counsel, why it is a need. Then we discussed when we need, there is a need for engage a lawyer. Then we discussed about the exceptions in the law, and now we discuss the theoretical foundation. This is important. I would like to urge all our audience, all our participants, all the people who are here, that the theoretical aspect must be properly understood and kept in mind, because when somebody says that why we need a lawyer, why should it be provided to you, sometimes people say you are a criminal, so no need to engage a lawyer, we should not spend money. I remember when there was a case of a terrorist and the hearing was going on, many people said state is spending so much of money
Yes.
on this aspect. He should not be defended, he should be killed immediately. Even very recently, what happened in Hyderabad, 4 people were killed by police in the name of encounter, and they were killed without giving a chance of right to be heard. So then, when we express ourselves, when there is a concern about these issues, we must bear in mind that giving a chance to be legally represented or legal defense is a right. It is a jurisprudential notion. It is a fundamental human right. It is a right under constitution and law. So therefore, it cannot be denied to anyone. Everyone has a right. If you have a issue, you have a question, you are in conflict with law, there is a legal issue emerged, then you will be protected with legal defense and legal representation. So this foundational aspect cannot be denied. We must bear in mind that it is a fundamental human right of everyone, that right to be heard, right to be protected by a lawyer must be given. Now, next, we'll come to this aspect, that what is the legal provision in India? If it is a right, what is the legal provision in India? Because otherwise it will be merely a black letter law. There will be provision in the constitution, there will be provision in the international law, there will be provision in different thing, and there will be the subject will be discussed every level, but there will be no legal provision. Let us examine what is there in the Indian legal system. If you look at the verdicts of Supreme Court and High Court at different point of time since our independence, you can see that many a time the Supreme Court has said that legal defense is a part and parcel of right to life. It is a part of dignity. It is so you can say it is a derivative of fundamental right to life. So Supreme Court has recognized it. But gradually, since many issues were emerged, many people demanded, many people were given punishment without properly defended in the criminal court. So gradually it was discussed, and as I said earlier, in 1975, uh, through 42nd constitutional amendment, the concept of free legal aid was incorporated into the Indian Constitution. Gradually, again, it was discussed that how that constitutional term shall be translated into action. Then government realized the legal aid boards were constituted across the country, and during 1987, we found that the Legal Services Authorities Act has been enacted in 1987. What is this Legal Services Authority? It says that legal aid will be provided. What is legal aid? Legal aid means a free provision to defend your case in the court of law. What services are available? You will be given a lawyer, you will be given court fees, you will be given fees for getting orders from the court. If you need for preparation of court records, you will be given that opportunity. So these provisions are incorporated in the Legal Services Authority Act, and that law was enacted. Now the question is, if the law is enacted, where can we avail that legal service? So the law said, the Legal Services Authority Act said that there will be at least 5 levels of legal services mechanism. At the Supreme Court level, there will be a legal service, Supreme Court Legal Service Committee. If you have a case in the Supreme Court, you will approach the Legal Service Committee in the Supreme Court. They will provide you legal aid. At the state level, if you have a case at the High Court, you can approach the High Court Legal Service Committee. They will appoint a lawyer. They will give you legal aid for preparation of your record, for your court, for towards your court fees and all that. Suppose you have a case either civil in nature or criminal in nature in the district court, then you will be given legal aid from the district legal service authority. They are there. Once you approach them, they will appoint a lawyer. They will bear all the cost. Under that, below also in various taluks, you can use the term subdivisions in this case. In taluks and subdivisions, wherever there is a JMFC code, there is a taluk legal service committee. You can approach them for legal aid. So this provision is now created in India to provide legal defense to people. Now, what is the role of court in it? If these provisions are there, what kind of role the court has to play? It is the it is inbuilt provision in the our civil procedure code, in our criminal procedure code, in our constitution, in the verdicts of the Supreme Court, that suppose you have a case and you don't have the means to engage a lawyer, then it is the responsibility of the court to verify that whether you can engage a lawyer or a state sponsored lawyer is necessary. So if somebody says that due to my incapacity, due to somebody is indigent person, somebody doesn't have sufficient means to engage a lawyer, then the court will appoint a lawyer. Of course, there are restrictions. There are some certain conditions for legal aid because it is not available to everyone. Because rich people may not require a lawyer. You might have heard that we have lawyers who demand almost 10 lakh rupees, 1 crore rupees for single hearing. In Supreme Court, you have big lawyers who demand that. So people who have huge resources, they can engage that kind of lawyer. But this legal aid is for a certain category of people. They are women, children, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, LGBTIQ, then a person with disability, a person visited by natural calamity, labor, someone who is a migrant labor or that kind of thing. In that case, legal aid will be given towards the cost of lawyer, towards the court fees and all that. So it is the responsibility of the court that during the hearing of the case, they must make sure that the people whose cases are being heard, they are well represented by a lawyer. They are well represented by defended by the lawyer of their choice. When it comes to legal aid, these are very important factors. Therefore, let us come to this aspect, and before we'll open for our interaction, or if there are questions.
Yeah.
We must also know that if legal aid provisions are there in the constitution, that is there in the criminal law, that is there in the civil procedure code. As I said, in our criminal procedure code, there is a provision of legal aid in CRPC, criminal procedure code, in 304. Similarly, in civil procedure, order 33 says legal aid will be given in case of indigent persons. So these provisions are there. Now, what are the basic, what is more important if these provisions are there and legal aid is available? Suppose I'll tell you and close my discussion here that no, you are eligible for legal aid, you can engage a lawyer, state has to bear the expenses, it is a human right, it is a fundamental right, so no one can deny it. Then probably there is a possibility that you will have a lawyer, but who is not responding to your points. So according to my experience, what are the major elements of access to counsel? What should be there? This is basically based on my experience working with the subject over last almost 30 years. I started as a law student working in legal aid. Then I became a lawyer and conducted several cases. Then I decided to promote legal aid movement in Odisha and in India through my organization, Clark Legal Service Institute. So over 30 years, what I learned is that there are several elements in a good legal aid program. What are those elements? Let me tell you some important aspect. I think you will also you can also contribute to this idea. First, it must be a timely one. Legal aid, if you have a right to have a lawyer, if you have a right to legal defense, if you have a right to be right to legal representation in the court of law, then the first element is it must be timely. Whenever there is a demand, the availability of lawyer must be ensured. Suppose you justice as an accused. The police called you to the police station and they issued a notice. You don't have idea what to do. People, police say we have taken you to the custody. You'll be arrested. You'll be presented before court tomorrow. You don't have any idea about that what to do. So that moment itself, you have to have access to a lawyer who will tell you that the police can instead of asking you to come, they can issue a notice under 41A that I'll comply everything for investigation purpose, or police can provide bail, allow bail in some cases, and in some cases bail can also be anticipatory bail can also be taken prior to the arrest by the police. So on timely legal aid is very important. Timely legal service by a lawyer is very important. That happens in case of family case. You must have heard about this aspect. You must have come across about this issue that many women are suffering in their four walls of their domestic life because they don't have access to lawyer. They don't know that who is going to pay in case they are going to approach a court. They are always means we are not providing legal aid when it is actually required. It is not timely legal aid because only when somebody reaches and helps that woman out, then only a lawyer is engaged. So in family cases also it is required. Similarly, if it is in many cases there is a bar that after this period you cannot the time limit is over. The limitation period is given in every law and say after this period you cannot claim. Suppose, for example, there is a scheme called victim compensation scheme. The scheme says you have to claim within 2 years from the date of the occurrence of the offense.
Okay.
But if you don't have access to a lawyer on time, then you will be denied that right. Therefore, first element of legal service is timely legal action. Secondly, the lawyer must be of your choice. No one can say that, no, you take this lawyer and he is going to help you or she is going to help you in the court of law. Suppose you don't have a good relationship with that lawyer or you are unable to communicate because the lawyer understands a different language or there are other barriers, then it has no meaning. So the next important point is the lawyer must be engaged of his choice. Of course, you can say, suppose I will say that in for my every case, let Ram Jethmalani come and conduct the case. Then or let Harish Salve come and conduct my case. That is not possible. There must be limit for it. But the choice of lawyer must be of the person who has a case, who requires assistance of a lawyer. So that is second element of a good legal service program. Third is the lawyer engaged must be responsive one. Many a time what I have been observing since last 30 years, that the legal aid lawyers are engaged, but they are not responsive. Sometimes they say, yes, we filed your case, but in actual practice, the case is not filed. Sometimes they say, okay, we'll gear up the matter, but they don't take interest in early disposal of the cases. So the third element is very important, that is the responsive legal service. What is responsive legal service? Then there may be three, four, important issues which we need to be provided with. One is the lawyer engaged must be making substantial argument for the client. Not that since he is a legal aid lawyer, he must be arguing against him. He must be arguing in support of the client. There must be substantial argument, first one. Second one is the lawyer must be taking reasonable actions always. Suppose there is a need for making an application for interim order or for a bail, the lawyer must be taking that step for making arrangement of those things. Third is uh, uh, the services given must be up to the best of the ability of the lawyer. The lawyer is giving the maximum quality services which are required to conduct a case. So quality legal aid is also very important. Not only legal aid is given, but quality legal service is guaranteed. That is very important. That is mm, the essential ingredient of a legal service. There are many lawyers who are very efficient in criminal cases. There are good lawyers who are conducting civil cases with too much of knowledge and all that. So the lawyers who have good command over their subjects must be engaged to provide legal services to their clients. Then the last one is, and that is more important, legal services not should not be restricted to access to court only. It should be given throughout the case. That means from origin to appeal to revision to wherever necessary special leave petitions, and if required cases where writ applications is required. So all through the spheres of the cases, all through the cases, until it is decided by the highest court of the land, the legal representation, legal defense must be provided through legal aid. These are basic elements in our legal aid program, but these are lacking. Now, mm, saying all this, now come to the point that what is happening in India now. If it is a right, if right to counsel is a fundamental right, it's a constitutional right as discussed. There is theoretical foundation of the subject. There are legal laws made, and I said several elements which are required for good legal aid program to make legal service effective. Then what is happening in India? In India, we have legal service authorities, but by and large, people do not know that we have a legal aid system available. So naturally, when there is a case, poor people, marginalized people like women, children, scheduled caste, scheduled tribe, disabled people, they don't go to legal service authority seeking justice. They go to a lawyer to conduct the case. And very often the lawyers do not disclose this fact that there is a legal service mechanism available and you can be provided with free legal aid from that mechanism. So they are paying money in spite of the fact that in India we have a legal aid system. So it is happening like this, that even though there is a legal aid system, many people are denied. Those who are getting legal aid, most of the lawyers are not skilled because the payment rate is very low by the state authority. So they are not skilled to take off legal service. it's a voluntary service. So these problems are there. The lawyers are not there. Then when the case is over in the original court and there is a need for appeal and revision, nobody advises the client that you can appeal to the higher authority. You can move a writ to secure your right. So this right is also denied. So even though in India we have a very well designed, well planned legal aid system in place, but in actual practice many people are denied.
Yes.
So today I'll appeal to all our audience and our participants who are here. If you are working for the people, then make sure that other than most of the time as voluntary service, what we do, we provide them food, we provide them cloth, we
No.
provide them some medical assistance. But I will add that you provide them legal service also. No, it is not necessary that you are a lawyer. You help them to gain access to justice because
Right.
you are more competent, you can understand it, you can tell people that this is how you can approach the court for engagement of a lawyer. So I appeal all of you that right to legal representation, right to legal defense, or right to gain access to justice must be ensured, and we have a common responsibility in India to make sure that everyone, the poor, the marginalized, the deprived, they have access to justice so that their rights are protected. Otherwise, everything you can say that I have a right, but that right is actually violated, and when it is violated, no one is there to protect it. So that is going to happen. So we need to be more volunteer. We must volunteer ourselves. We must work for it. We must claim our right. We must demand our right, and wherever necessary, state-sponsored legal services must be availed. I think the time has already
Uh,
over. It
yes,
is
sir.
1852. So I'll open the floor for discussion.
Yes.
Amod ji has something to say. So
Yeah.
I conclude here. You can ask me question, or if the time doesn't permit, you can write me separately, or you can write my number so that I can respond you back. And you can take advantage of my organizational support, CLAP Legal Service Institute. Those who are not aware about it, they can also take advantage from my organization to defend your cases. Thank you so much. I'll be happy to respond to the questions, if any.
Okay. Thank you, Bikash sir, for sharing your valuable information to our participant, and you have accepted our invitation on behalf of Orissa Club organization. So before I allow other participants to ask questions, I would like to listen from you, sir, what you do and what are your services, because our organization director is also with us and number of organization director are also here. So you can kindly brief about the services you provide to the like-minded organization and all.
The CLAP Legal Service Institute has a number of activity. First one is we provide access to justice. That is our primary responsibility. For
Right.
that, we run a demonstrative model legal service clinic in Cuttack City. A group of lawyers are there in the legal service clinic. When cases are coming up before the legal service clinic, they examine the case, and if there is a prima facie case established, then they take up the matter with different levels of court, at the district level, at the state level, and at the Supreme Court level. Besides, we have a program for legal awareness. There are several methods used for creation of legal awareness. Nowadays, we are using information technology, and we have launched vidhiodia.org, where you can find Odia translation of law.
Okay.
And in order to make you understand what is that law, there is an article available, there is a PowerPoint available, a video is available, and a FAQ question answer is also available for every law in our vidhiodia.org website.
Okay.
Thirdly, and most importantly, we have some strategic intervention. Those NGOs who are interested to help people to create awareness about legal rights of people, they can take advantage of our services. Our lawyers can go and organize the program for them. Suppose you want to prepare some booklets or you want to compile some book, you can engage ourselves.
Okay.
And we have recently started a program that is called Promotion of Voluntary Action Program,
Mhm.
in which we help NGOs to redress in their cases. Many
Okay.
NGOs have their cases. Just like today, I heard that some NGOs did not receive their grant, which was earlier approved by the government of India.
Yeah.
But now 3 years have passed, but they are not getting the grant.
Yes.
So
Yes.
these kind of services are also being provided, apart from our legal research training program and also advocacy for legal reform.
Okay, sir. So, may I
This
request?
is all.
Yeah. Bishop Dibiruda is also with us, so he will speak a few words to you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
Uh, um, Dr. Vikas, I'm so proud of you, and thank you for taking time
Thank
to
you.
enlighten and educate our people in a legal ways. I have two questions.
Yeah, sure.
Since you are interested for helping NGOs in the general scenario in national level, the present central government is not recognizing the good works done by NGOs in India. So in this situation, what is the legal counsel how they will intervene in order to support the NGO work at the large? That is number one. Um,
Yeah.
the FCRA law is a kind of saying that you don't do any good work in India. So this is my opinion. Okay.
Yeah.
Second thing is uh, the constitution change air is taking place. So how our general public, general citizens will be educated on the constitution of India? What is the government's provision or procedure? How to do it? Do you have any suggestion? Please enlighten me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much for your appreciation and compliments, and also for the questions. I think this is very important. The freedom of association must be protected, because freedom of association is directly connected with the availability of space for civil society to operate. Unless you have a civil society in place, then your nature of democracy will change. Even though historically, conventionally, we see three institutions as major institutions of democracy: judiciary, executive, and legislature. But like media, the civil society has an important role to play, and it is from my understanding, it is very much essential that the government must enhance the legal status of NGOs through various mechanisms like giving relaxation in Income Tax Act.
Hmm.
The provisions of FCRA must be relaxed. Financial assistance may be given, and they should be given adequate opportunity to grow. But the
Yes.
recent FCRA has restricted operation of NGOs, so I would suggest that we'll write later, because there is a provision under section 50 of FCRA where if government desires, then they can relax implementation of the law for this some time. Either we can make a representation, otherwise we should have the courage to fight it back in the court of law. In fact, we are, as organization, we are planning to go to High Court defending this provision, that these are illegal, these are unconstitutional. So declare this amendment as null and void in view of the unconstitutionality of the provisions. So that must be there. And regarding education about constitutional issue, I don't think there is any attempt by government to educate people about the constitution, but we have started a constitutional education campaign. In for that, we have published Odia, translated the constitution into Odia, And now we are planning to launch a number of program in school, colleges, and other parts to create awareness about the constitution, so that our democracy can be saved.
Yes.
No one can
Right.
take away your right or entitlement or interfere in your independence, your freedom, your right to life. So we are also creating awareness. I would request you to take up this matter with your organization also, to
Yes.
create awareness about
Yes.
constitutional issues. That will be
Yes.
more very helpful for the people. Thank you.
I will really appreciate if you can come and help us in this legal aspect,
Sure.
particularly educating our general public in the national constitution. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. We'll be doing
Thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
So now I encourage,
Nihar Babu has a question. I think he has raised his.
some of the participants, they have written in chat box, sir. So let me read it out for you.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Please.
Go on.
Yes. Sir, what is legal heir and what is the benefit of it after the death of the husband?
Mhm.
I mean, the widow must get legal heir certificate, and I want to know what is the benefit of it and why it is needed for.
Yeah. Okay, let me tell you like this. After death of a person, like after birth of a person, you need a birth certificate,
Yeah.
recognizing that the person is there in the society, in the earth. Similarly, after death of the person, you must recognize that the person is no longer available on earth. So you need a death certificate. The death certificate is a evidence that the person is no longer alive. So that is important. It is also a legal provision. You will get a death certificate from the, in Odisha case, it is the health officers who are issuing death certificate in various urban area, and in rural area it is I think the block office, block development office who are giving it. What is the benefit of death certificate? The death the person is no longer alive. Secondly, when you go for asking for a legal heir certificate, then you have to produce the death certificate that the person is actually died. So without a death certificate, they are not going to give you a legal heir certificate. The legal heir certificate, what kind of help it provides? It enables you to to demand your succession right on the property or resources created by the deceased person. Suppose the person has had property, building, or bank balances, you can produce that legal heir certificate, and accordingly the court will allow you to be the successor of that person if you are the only legal heir. If there are many legal heirs, then this will be decided as per the succession law of India. Succession laws are different for different religion. It is different for Hindus, it is different for Muslim, and it is different from Christian. But your legal heir certificate enables you to demand your succession right. Similarly, suppose somebody was working in a government private sector and eligible for some kind of pension or something, you can use that document to claim that you are the legal heir. So the entitle must be given to you. So it is a kind of document which enables you to claim your entitlement. So this is very important. Is that
Thank
right?
you, sir.
Okay.
I have a
Yeah.
question.
Sir, I have a question, sir.
Yes, please. Please
So,
introduce
hello.
yourself.
Yeah.
Yes,
I have a
please.
question, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, this is Nihar Ranjan Acharya, and
Yeah.
I am thankful. I am thoroughly enjoying your speech from the starting of your speech. Sir, I have a small question. You said that without the death certificate, legal hair certificate cannot be issued, right, sir?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
No,
sir,
no,
in
it's
my
not that.
mother's death, no, without without death certificate, legal hair certificate cannot be issued. Right?
Yeah.
Am I right, sir?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
right.
But in my mother's death, sir, without issuance.
I mean, 2000 from the beginning of this century, the legal provisions are now more strict on this. Now they say that without a death certificate, no legal heir certificate will be issued. Earlier, it was allowed. So probably you might have applied for your legal heir certificate when there was no need of death certificate.
Yes,
But
yes,
now they have make it
yes,
mandatory
yes.
that legal death
4 years.
certificate is,
Four,
yeah, 4 years back. And they date
okay, sir.
when the death occurred.
Okay, yes, sir.
When the death occurred. Anyway, we'll discuss that. We'll discuss that individually because many people are there. So
Yeah.
the overall thing is that nowadays, it is mandatory to have a death certificate to claim your legal heir certificate.
Yeah.
Yes. Any other question?
Okay.
Bharat Panda is there.
Honorable,
Would you like to
Honorable
add
Advocate,
something, Bharat?
Yeah. Asit Kumar Mahanti sir is asking a question. Okay, sir. Please go on, sir.
Yeah.
no, no, if Brother Bharat is going to supplement to the previous discussion, then let him speak because my subject is something else.
Okay.
Yeah. Please. Please continue, please.
I- Is Mr. Panda speaking, asking, or
No, no.
supplementing?
You carry on fast.
Okay.
You can
Okay,
ask your
thank you.
question.
Thank you. Honorable Advocate Dr. Vikas, I have a question that
Yeah.
can a religious institution be registered as a society? Like, can a temple or a mosque or a church be registered as a society in Odisha
Yeah.
state?
Mhm.
That's my question.
Uh, Hello.
Will
Yes, yes, that's my question.
Okay. Okay. Actually, the Society Registration Act was enacted for that purpose. That it will promote social, cultural, and religious purposes. So in Odisha, it is allowed to get registered under Society Registration Act as a society. If even the religious institutions like temple, mosque, churches, they can also be registered under Society Registration Act because they are promoting culture. So it
Okay.
is a part of of the objective of Society Registration Act.
Odisha, it can be possible, isn't it?
Yeah, it
But
is possible.
the Section 20 of Societies Act,
Yeah,
I think doesn't permit clearly that a
yeah,
religious institution can be
yeah,
declared as a charitable or registered as a charitable institution.
yeah,
Because of one religious institution is open only for their members or their
yeah,
worshippers. Like in
yeah.
a mosque, only
Mm,
Muslims can be a member or a worshipper there. In a temple,
yeah,
only Hindus
yeah,
can go inside the temple, like in our Jagannath temple. No other
mm,
religion people or no foreigners are allowed there. Like in case of a church also, only Christians
yeah,
can become a member and
yeah,
continue as the society. But
yeah. I don't think there is a restriction on religious institutions because the primary goal of this law is to promotion of
irrespective of yes, irrespective of caste, creed,
irrespective
and
of
religion, caste, creed, and religion,
anyone can.
anyone can
Yeah,
be a member. Their problem, the exact problem rises.
yeah,
Like the ADS, like additional district magistrates
yeah,
who gives the registration, they refuse. They refuse
yeah,
for a mosque
yeah,
to be registered as a to register them under the Society Act
yeah,
in that matter. Like a church, if a church goes to an ADR, additional district magistrate, they refuse that you
Okay.
don't come
Yeah.
because it is as per law. It is not, because it cannot be declared as a irrespective, open for all. In case of, when it is written,
No, it is not.
it is written.
No.
My point is,
Listen, yeah.
My point is, when you register a particular religious institution like a mosque or a church or a temple and declare
Yeah.
itself as a charitable institution, irrespective, open, irrespective of caste, creed, and religion, then when for a Hindu temple, tomorrow a Muslim comes and tries to, desires to become a member, he cannot be a member.
No, this is not applicable. The bar associations are only for lawyers, but they are registered under Society Registration Act. Can you allow everyone to be a lawyer? Can you allow others to be a member of bar association? So,
No.
so, so if lawyers are allowed to have bar association for their members only, if doctors are allowed to have an association under Society Registration Act for doctors only, so similarly, the religious institutions can have their bylaw may provide that who can be a member of that institution. So if somebody denies it, then it can be challenged in the court of law. You can approach High Court against the order of the sub-divisional magistrate or whoever has cancelled it.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So we are running.
Sir,
namaskar.
I have
Namaskar.
a little query.
Namaskar.
You said, sir, just 1 minute. I have a
There are
little query. Actually,
there are many questions. So can we go by one?
Yeah, that
sir,
would.
I have a
Can we
little
go
query.
one by one? Yeah.
Sir, I have a little query. I want to know what is the differences between counsel, advocate, lawyer, and attorney, or these are all same synonymal things, or what?
I don't think there is any dissimilarities. It is similar. In many countries, different terms were used. There are small differences, like attorney cannot, suppose there is a term solicitor. In English law, a solicitor can only solicit a case. He cannot conduct the case, and an attorney has to appear in the court. But nowadays, I think these are used for synonymally for all other. So there is not much difference with counsel, pleader, attorney, lawyer, advocate, and these are similar almost. And there is a
Sir,
question.
namaskar.
Thank you. Sir. Thank you.
My question is,
Yeah.
when in
Please
the criminal
introduce-
process,
Please introduce
Manasi
yourself.
Padhi,
Yeah.
when in the criminal process, does the right to counsel begin and end?
When it begins, in
Thank
every case, right to counsel begins from the very beginning of the case. Suppose in a criminal case, if you are a victim, then you are going to approach, say, the police officer. Once your case is registered and somebody is found as the accused, then the accused from the very beginning has a right to consult a lawyer. So at the time of police inquiry, he can contact his lawyer, he can take advice of the lawyer, and it goes on after that. Like after that, the case will be registered, the bail will be moved, you need a lawyer, there will be charge sheet. So at the time of charge frame, you can defend it. If the higher charges are there, you can challenge it. Then the trial begins, you can engage your lawyer to protect you. So from the very beginning of the criminal case against any accused, the right to counsel starts, and you can engage a lawyer throughout the process until it is finally decided by Supreme Court if there is a requirement.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, what's your telephone number, sir? Contact number?
My number is 94
Yes.
370
Yes.
35
35
680.
680. Okay, sir. Thank you.
I repeat 94 370 35 680.
Right,
Yeah,
sir. Thank you.
I have written in chat box. Kindly note it down.
And my email ID is because @clap India CLAPINDIA clapindia.org.
Vikas means BIKASH.
SH.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So we are running short of time. So kindly, I can allow only last participant. If you have any question, kindly ask.
Is there any question?
Yeah, Bharat Panda sir has a question. So,
Bharat is a lawyer who has been working on this. So
okay, sir.
I think it would be better if he can speak for a few minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Bharat, please carry on, Bharat.
Thank you very much, sir. The is a lawyer, legal lawyer, and who can access covered almost all aspects of the bit of Union. I want to add only the constitutional provisions. That is Article 22, Clause 2 of the Indian Constitution. Explicitly written that right to be defended by a person of his own choice. That is written down in under Article 22 of 22 Clause 2 of Indian Constitution. Basically, in there is a very landmark case, that is Hussaina Khatun versus
Bharat Panda sir, you are not audible.
Are you here?
Yeah, your voice is cracking. I don't know for what reason. Maybe network issues.
There may be network problem, sir.
Yeah, yeah.
Parts of Bihar jail, or they are languishing the jail, and they needed lawyer to be defended. So it is a Supreme Court which took up this matter and provided that right to get free legal aid and right to choose lawyer is becoming a fundamental as well as our most constitutional rights. The right to has free justice also, and right to have a free and fair trial, which is coming within the ambit of Article 20 of the Constitution. And so far as the legal aid cells are there, that Vikas sir have already spoken about all those things regarding the District Legal Service Authority. In fact, that CLAP is doing a very wonderful and marvelous job in our state, Odisha, for decades together. And we have been taking up various issues without any discriminations, and trying to provide them the access to justice, and maximum have-nots or the vulnerable sections of societies, they have taken advantage of this club. And that was, sir, because time is running out and there are some network problem, so I don't want to kill much time. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot, Bharat Panda sir. So,
Welcome, sir.
so now this is the time to give vote of thanks to everyone. Especially, I would like to thank Dr. Bikash sir for spending your most valuable time, and you have accepted the invitation on behalf of Orissa Follow-up Organization. And also today we got connected with a number of new participants with our Orissa Follow-up Organization. So I would like to thank the rest of the participants for joining with us and encouraging us. And because of you all only, this webinar has become successful, and because you have cooperated with us and listen to our guest speaker carefully. That's why I would like to thank everyone, those who have attended our webinar. Thanks a lot, all of you.